Jesus. I get chills every time I read that section, that Joseph would move forward in faith. So often we focus on Mary, right? Sometimes when I'm doing weddings, I have a joke that I'll say, here's the bride at the rehearsal, and she, of course, is going to be wearing this beautiful wedding dress that, is presumably is purchased and all these different things. And then there's rental boy, right, standing next to her. Now, thankfully, the grooms, I don't think at least, have taken exception to that when I kind of kid around, because then I'll always say, okay, so when the bride's coming down the groom, everybody don't look at rental boy. Everybody's got to look at the bride because it's her day, right? And sometimes we have that with Mary, right, that we just kind of put all of our attention on Mary. And again, I understand that some other faiths have a very special relationship with Mary, so I don't mean to downplay Mary's importance by any stretch, theologically or any other way. But Joseph, sometimes we do overlook Joseph and the amount of courage that it took for him to move forward and to move forward in faith and in trust and in love. So this Sunday, when love is the Advent focus, two passages talk about signs, of God's presence. God's love, but also God's challenge to us to get love right, to get love right. The sign that comes up in the complex Isaiah passage, fraught with the politics of the day and with plenty of fear of annihilation, they shook as the trees of a forest shake, is a child. That's the answer to the problems, a child. And children were often signs in the Hebrew texts, and certainly as we look at this as a symbol, that we see a child as the future generation. And this future is Emmanuel, God with us. Last week we explored kind of the action-packed and pretty short Gospel of Mark. This week we turn to the Gospel of Matthew, written for a Hebrew Bible-literate crowd. Matthew's careful to connect Jesus strongly to the Jewish heritage and history, right? We went through that whole lineage. Matthew's origin story of Christianity begins with this long genealogy. And again, notice how the exile is in the midst of that story, those 14 generations. And here again, we see the past struggles. So I think part of why that genealogy is there is to just show that we understand life hasn't been easy. God says, we understand. The gospel writers, the Spirit says, right, things have not been easy along this lineage. But yet, the seed of Jesus has always been there through Abraham. The child is the product of a historical lineup of generations and will be the sign that God is with us into the future trials as well. That's why I read that this morning, to kind of try to get an idea, again, of the longevity of that promise. We hear of Joseph's radical act of love in a situation that gave him every reason to just walk away. The messenger says, don't be afraid to do the hard thing here. There's a big payoff for humanity in it. The only way the future is cared for is to love it like a child. Maybe you've heard that expression before. Love the future like a child. We must love the child, nurture the child, or as we use the symbolic meaning, love the future, nurture the future. And that is done by being courageous enough to love differently, love fully, love in a way that nurtures all of humanity's future, not destroy it. These last couple weeks, well, actually 2 weeks, sorry. I've been working on this whole series, so I'm kind of 6 weeks ahead here in my brain, but you've only had a chance to watch one movie last week, and I hope that you had a chance to watch that and reflect on some of the things that we discussed. But the documentary movie that I encourage you to watch this week is a powerful story of future generations. It's a documentary film called Girls on the Wall. Girls on the Wall. The girls of this documentary are juvenile offenders in prison. A drama teacher leads them in writing their story, the story of their lives, and creating a musical out of it. As they allow the process and the music to penetrate their hardened hearts, they find that their desire for love is the key to moving forward in their own healing and rehabilitation. So here's the description of the film that I think we truly can get all inspiration from, even if you don't even watch the movie, to just hear the story of these girls. These teenage girls are from Warrenville Prison, and they're not your average delinquents. Having graduated from juvie to prison, these are the kids most likely to remain in the correctional system their whole lives. They are also some of the sharpest and irrepressible young women that you'll meet. When the girls of this Heartland prison are given an unlikely shot at redemption, the chance to write and stage a musical based on their lives, they must relive their crimes, reclaim their humanity, and take a first step towards reconciling their past and breaking free to start again. One reviewer at the HuffPost said this about the film: "There is a remarkable power in telling your story." And that, I think, is true for all of us, right? But he goes on about the story. In the film, the director interviews some really hard case inmates who happen to be girls. They talk about the robberies and murders they've committed. They tell stories of abuse and addiction, but mostly they heal. That is the most remarkable part of this film. You become a witness to inner change, and that change is initiated by the act of storytelling. Ross, like many good directors, becomes a catalyst for change by simply holding listening space for the speaker. There's a lot that goes into documentary filmmaking: stamina, courage, a heroic, undaunted strength in the face of a challenge. But the biggest production skill just might be listening. You ask the questions, but you gotta hear what people are saying. I love that. You ask the questions, but you gotta hear, really hear what people are saying. And sometimes people don't really say what they're feeling, right? Sometimes you have to look underneath the surface. And that's one thing that I really hope that we are working on together, is getting away from surface relationships and digging deeper. So, when we're talking to people, or we're calling on the phone, just checking to see how you're doing, or we're sharing in a letter, take some time to really dig deep, right? How are you doing? And they say, I'm fine. And you say, oh, great, okay, and then off you go on what it is that you wanted to say. But take some time to really listen to the inflection in people's voices, or what they maybe don't say. Again, I'm not saying to be invasive, but to just give them a space to share. Sometimes it takes a little while, so just be quiet for a little bit, which is so hard for me. I know, for maybe other people too. But just be quiet just for a bit, and let there be a space of silence. And then let them go ahead and maybe just share if they want to. You ask the questions, but you gotta hear what people are saying. People want to share their stories of what's happening in their lives. You want to too, maybe. Or maybe you don't want to. But yet, if you would, maybe there would be some healing there. So that's the beauty of this clip that we're going to show you, is that, again, it's the healing through the storytelling. I do want to advise you right off the bat that there is some very strong language, not so much in the trailer that we're going to show you right now. So I think probably if you have children there right now, it's okay. There is some language. But I would encourage you, again, if you do choose to watch this video, to embrace the language as an act of deeper love and listening for greater understanding. So here's the trailer, and I hope that you find meaning in it, for Girls on the Wall.
Actually, I stole several cars, but only got caught for one.
I didn't do nothing, of course, as everybody says, but
I cut her from her ear down her neck. I stabbed her in her back.
She had to get 6 stitches. That is not nothing.
I think it's important for you to tell your stories. That's a risk, isn't it? But it's important that we share the stories of how we've lived.
Want to see my scar first?
I had a fight with this girl. We got into an argument, and I was beating her up. So she cut me.
I
don't know. I'm the type of person, I always gotta fight all the time.
Faggot.
I gotta grow out of that. Bitches.
But they think everything's just supposed to be easy, and they don't know stuff that happens.
My mom's a crackhead. My surroundings is basically what I'm worried about right now, because I don't want to go back to the ghetto or whatever. I've lived there my whole life. I know. Jim and Margie are the best thing that's happening to me right now. I'm gonna go live with them and live the life that I never got to live. But this new world that I'm gonna be in, it's gonna be so hard, because sometimes I feel out of place when I'm around a lot of white people.
I'm real evil. And that's the truth. I had an anger problem.
All right, I'm getting frustrated, for real.
Okay, just do something quick so we can.
I had this thing where you gonna give me respect. You gonna give me my respect. But when you come across people who disrespect you, I guess I lost it. And now I'm here.
Some kids leave here and die. Some kids leave here and be crackheads. Y'all not everybody that's on this paper leaving and be successful.
All right.
I'm a little girl. You know what I'm saying? No, I still to this day, my family don't none of them know.
You want me to act, don't
I want you to act.
This story wakes us up to the thousands of young lives in danger of getting lost in the system. The movie, at first difficult for some of us to hear the harsh language and anger of these girls and the reality of their violent past. But as the film progresses, we see the root of that anger. We see the longing for love in spite of all their defenses. And we come to know them, wanting them to have the love that so eluded them. These stories are of real people and the impact of the absence of love. In some ways, it reminds me that Jesus' seemingly illegitimate birth and humble beginnings could have squashed the message forever. Think about that. What do we miss out on when we judge too quickly, dismiss too soon? Deeper love requires longer listening times. Let me say that again. Deeper love requires longer listening times. Suspending judgment, taking our time, being with each other in the ways that God with us came in human form to get up close and deeply personal. And that's what we're called to do, is to have those relationships, to build that trust. I know it takes some time, but to build that trust in relationships that we can share our deepest longings, our deepest issues, our deepest fears. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Isn't that the term? Rubber meets the road. Yeah, I think that's right. As followers of Christ, we need to be willing to meet sinners where they are. And then you think about that, where they are. Well, no, where we are, where I am and where you are. Sin is sin is sin. Who are we to judge others when we also sin against God? But think of your life for a minute, on the times that you've messed up. Okay, well, so maybe there's too many to count. I don't know. I had a hard time thinking of just one, or I kept thinking of many. So just think of just one time in your life that you just totally messed up. Think about that. How did love figure into that? Was love and forgiveness withheld from you by loved ones? Or maybe you were unable to forgive or love yourself. Or maybe, again, others withheld that love. Or maybe you felt that God was withholding his love from you because of something you did. Or maybe you feel that he still is not able to love you, not loving you. Or in this instance, were you held accountable? Yes, always we should be held accountable for our wrongs. But also, were you shown grace and mercy and forgiveness by others? Did you show that to yourself as well? Sometimes we're the hardest people to give ourselves grace and mercy, right? We can forgive other people, but sometimes it's just so hard to let ourselves be forgiven by ourselves. Or do you believe that God is still holding that grudge? And again, I just pray that if you are feeling any of those things, that you let that go. Because God loves you. God wants you to acknowledge your mistakes. He wants me to acknowledge my mistakes, my sins. He doesn't want us to keep just doing the same thing over and over. But if we have a contrite heart, I want to make a change in my life. God, I don't want to keep doing this, whatever it is. Or forgive me, Lord, for that. God will forgive you. God does forgive you. God has forgiven you. So show that same grace and mercy to yourself and begin anew today. In this Advent season, perhaps now more than ever, we are given the opportunity to love in a new and powerful way, to love with the radical, all-encompassing love of Jesus Christ, Emmanuel, God with us. So I invite you to just take a moment as we join together in prayer to get in a comfortable position. I invite you to just get as quiet and still as you can. I invite you to take a deep breath. Perhaps close your eyes or focus on a candle or watch the video that we'll be showing you. To prepare yourself and to take time to pray. Prepare yourself for this prayer with God.
The gentle pull of God is often lost amidst the rush of all the obligations which lay a claim on us. Yet just beyond the frantic pace our restless feet have trod lie deep still pools of quietness, the dwelling place of God. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Be the air I breathe. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Free me to receive. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Be the air I breathe. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Free me to receive. Oh, take me to that sacred place where, lost in wonder and in awe, that moment comes and I rejoice to be and be with God. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Be the air I breathe. Meet me in the stillness, Lord. Free me to receive. To